Hello.
Hello.
Welcome to Have You Eaten Yet, the podcast where we talk about all things Asian health. This is our first episode, where we'll be giving you some context as to who we are, why we're here, and what that means for you. I'm your co-host, Celeste.
And I'm your co-host, Kiran. We have a lot to get through, so stick around.
Okay, so let's go all the way back. How did this all start?
Wait, like how far back? Like our first business ideas back?
Well, that's a little far. Because, we've had a lot of experiences over the years.
Yeah,
Fly high, dear the world.
Yeah, I mean, kind of flopped, sorta, but it's okay. It's okay. Because
Raised Red did better.
Okay, that is true. Raised Red went really well, actually. That was good. But, on a serious note, we do hope to bring you into the loop, though, because you probably don't know what we're talking about right now.
All right, Kiran, do the Spark Notes summary for us.
Okay, long story short, we started a nonprofit with big dreams. We did one semi-successful project, then it flopped, and now we're here.
Proof that dreams do come true, though. Oh, right. With the help of the University of Louisville School of Public Health and Kent School of Social Work, and their partnership with the Asia Institute Crane House and the Humana Foundation's Community Partners Program.
Wait, we should explain that too.
Well, yeah, that's true. So let's get more into it. It all started with a phone call that pretty much turned into a 2-hour session about how we could give back to our communities. Both of us feel like a lot of young Asian people, immigrants, and people of color in general, honestly, can relate to the experience of translating and navigating the health system on behalf of our parents. As much as it was helpful for them, it was also a pretty big responsibility for us, one that we weren't necessarily ready to handle.
Exactly. Standing in line at the local pharmacy and translating for your stressed out parents or relatives is something I'm sure many can relate to in some capacity. An extreme sport, honestly, is what I usually laugh about it with friends. But, I worked in a pharmacy in retail, and the amount of times I would see, a lot of teens and young adults come in trying to translate was a lot. And it was also very stressful for them, which made the experience a lot worse than it needed to be. And I think it's also hard when you have, sick parents or relatives and you're already stressed from that. And then you have to add on trying to navigate, the system and signing all these forms. And so it gets kind of rough.
I've definitely seen that as well. I mean, I was definitely the translator growing up for both my family and other people. I'm the one who's always been in charge of official documents and translation. Honestly, I remember even recently on one of my last visits to the hospital, there was a lady at the counter who only spoke Spanish. None of the employees there could talk to her, so they had to ask around for someone who could translate, and I did it. Which, honestly, are two really important things. When I reflect back on that experience, it really hits me how much important information we've been expected to relay as kids, right? Not even as employees of the hospital. And a lot of the time, we don't even have the knowledge to understand these things ourselves.
Exactly. But there's one thing, though. In a way, now that we're adults, we have been fortunate enough to gain the education, jobs, and peers that we have to help us better navigate these situations and potentially identify resources. But there's still a lot of work that needs to happen in our communities. A lot of people our age or younger face the same problems, but are still expected to, almost professionally, work through the system. So we thought about things like this and really wanted to get to the root of why this stuff happens.
Yeah, and sort of touching back on our experiences that we just talked about, back then, too, we had similar reflections. Both of us are from different states and different parts of Asia, but we still felt these kinds of pressures. Asia, being as diverse and expansive as it is, shares a lot of similarities when it comes to our healthcare experiences.
Yeah, that's true. I think despite our cultural differences, though, we share the immigrant and diasporic experience, which honestly allows us to learn from each other, and that's why we're here.
For sure. We're definitely not professionals, but we're taking the time to do the research and learn from people's experiences.
But it's not just that. We will also have trained professionals and those part of the field join us and share their guidance and industry knowledge.
Right. And honestly, us being here right now is all thanks to the Asia Institute Crane House peer-to-peer support storefront, also known as APPSS or APPS. APPS is the official partnership between the University of Louisville School of Public Health and Kent School of Social Work, and the Asia Institute Crane House and the Humana Foundation's Community Partners Program. For a little background, it's a project centered on helping the Asian American community understand how to recognize health needs, seek appropriate care, and manage chronic conditions.
Yep, And the project isn't just composed of this podcast. There are other components like in-person information sessions, workshops for diabetes or mental health, vaccine clinics, food events. You get the point.
By now, a few of you have probably realized that we're addressing social determinants of health. Basically, social determinants of health are the conditions in which people live, grow, work, and even age. These all impact our health outcomes.
And for our Asian community, major work still needs to be done. So this podcast will have a series of episodes that tackle different focuses and educate on what's going on, why we should worry, the list goes on.
This is definitely something that the Humana Foundation has actually been pushing for, as they aim to advance health equity through addressing social determinants of health.
Their support for the APPS project is truly very appreciated. So is the support from the University of Louisville School of Public Health and Kent School of Social Work. They have amazing professors, students, and support for the project too.
Right, creating user-friendly programs for the Asian community and more. It's all such amazing work. All in all, APPS is really the work of a collective group of individuals, organizations, and leaders who genuinely want to see a difference for the Asian American community.
This podcast is simply an extension of a larger effort being created right at this moment.
Alright, so now everyone knows why we're here. But what's with the podcast name? What does this have to do with food?
So, despite the podcast being named Have You Eaten Yet? This isn't a foodie podcast. We'll be talking about food sometimes, but that's not really the entire premise of the show. What's more important to the name is the significance of food to us and our cultures.
Right. One of the most common greetings in Asian cultures is the question, have you eaten yet? You'll find this greeting regardless of the culture or language. It isn't really a literal question, more so a greeting to ask about the well-being of our friends and family. The idea of food as tied to health, well-being, and happiness is important to our cultures.
It's a pretty simple question, but conveys layers of care and unspoken sentiment. This podcast is meant to address and demystify questions like these that often come with unexplained cultural implications.
Right, and when you think about it, the concept of food and eating is a communal activity in many Asian cultures. And as a podcast, we encourage community members to come together and share their stories and insight.
Sharing experiences is a huge part of what we're about. We have several core values and practices that are at the heart of this podcast and really embody our mission.
The first is listening. We've always believed that the first step towards change is being open and receptive to others' experiences and perspectives. It's important for us to create a space for others to listen to diverse voices and amplify the voices of those who are personally involved. Because we're not experts, and we don't try to be.
So it's important for us to bring on other people who've dealt with various issues extensively and can draw from their own experiences to shed light on what we're learning.
Right, and through learning about these issues, we can begin to understand how we can take action through contribution. Tangible change starts with giving back to communities through many different means. Donations, volunteering, speaking up and having tough conversations, and more.
We want to create an environment where we really embody what we speak through our actions. Performativity is not productive. Showing up, showing out, and embodying your words through impactful actions is key. Be an active part of the movement in the community.
Yeah, and to add on to that last bit, being an active part of the community is done through evolving and growing. The process is continual and it never stops. External and internal work should be done every day through acknowledging our own shortcomings and doing better, finding ways to educate ourselves and others, and seeking to improve as a person.
So we've discussed a lot about, what this podcast is, but I think we still should go over a little bit of the structure. So why do we do what we do, and why are we here? So can you tell us just a little bit more about that, Celeste?
Well, to give a little idea for our structure, we'll be exploring a chosen topic in public health for each episode. You'll get to hear from people from all different types of backgrounds. Local businesses, health centers, academics, researchers, young adults and teens, you name it.
Yeah, the point is to share stories alongside the resources.
Oh, and something that we're super excited about is how we plan to involve local restaurants in this effort.
I mean, it would only be right considering we are. Have you eaten yet?
Wink, wink. Nudge, nudge. Right, so the idea behind collaborating with local Asian restaurants is that we understand a lot of them suffered loss during this pandemic. So we want to highlight some amazing food places and hopefully give them the recognition they deserve.
And we also recognize that health and wellness includes food. In this way, listeners can find good food near them, or for those far away, at least get ideas and recipes for food that they can make at home. We really hope that sharing food in this way will create a community effort that builds strong ties and respect for each other.
Okay, but how do respect and strong ties relate to this?
Well, understanding and respecting Asian cuisine in its entirety with all of its diversity is one way to shed light on how dynamic and robust Asia is. When it comes to strong ties, think about how food bonds us. It's literally why we're here, right? Asking, have you eaten yet, is how so many of our Asian family members and friends ask us if we're okay mentally and physically.
Right. In a way, we're trying to amplify one of the sources of how we show affection and concern. This is something we'll touch on later, but in Asian communities, mental health can often be overlooked.
It's not something we really talk about, at least not directly.
Right, so we thought that calling this podcast Have You Eaten Yet would provide some sort of comfort for our listeners, like it does for us.
Yeah, these conversations, even for me as a co-host, can be a little tricky. So in a way, the setup of this podcast makes me feel a little bit closer with the listeners.
Yeah, I think vulnerability doesn't have to be something that we feel embarrassed or weak about, so hopefully through this podcast, our listeners will find comfort as they learn alongside us, and we build a little community.
So we hope that you will all find this podcast useful and take away lessons that you can apply to your daily life. So the next time your parents come in with fruit cut up on a board and they ask, have you eaten yet? Just keep that in mind.
Hey, so Kiran, have you eaten today?
Have I eaten? Girl, okay, so I had cake, I had pizza, I had a taco, and now I'm waiting for my next meal. It was a day. Did you eat?
I did. Honestly, I want to eat what you had. Sounds like you're having a party over there.
No, I really am. What did you eat?
I had chicken curry and rice.
Oh my gosh, your mom made it, right?
Yes.
Oh, okay, yeah, you trumped me. You won. You definitely won this one. That was good.
I mean, homemade food has its perks. Fast food has its perks as well.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. Are you calling me out right now? Are you saying it was all fast food? Because you're right. It was, but...
I'm a big fan of fast food, all right?
No.
We love it.
Okay, really? What's your top favorite?
I mean, look, it's McDonald's, okay? Don't...
No. It slaps. Like the McChicken, it's good.
Honestly, a good double cheeseburger at the end of the day takes it home.
No, you're right. Well, I hope that our listeners are also able to eat something really delicious today. So, yeah.
Keep yourselves well fed, stay healthy, take care of yourselves, and we'll see you guys next time.
Bye.
Bye.